to wish that if you are behind us, you come this way, so that we don't talk to you with our backs, because we have to talk to people at home and give them the message. I just wish that if you're behind us on this side, just move this way. Yeah, just move that way. Thank you so much. Are we ready? Pato, I can't see the close-up. Is there a close-up? Want to do the intro on that? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome so much for today's talk. Today we are going to deal with something that is very easy to understand since we've been talking about it since morning. It is something to do with mental health awareness right here at Kenya Assemblies of God. So welcome so much. We are going to do brief introduction for the sake of those who probably did not get the first introduction when my panelists were coming. And I'll start from my friend here, Dr. Farida Kagure, who is a medical doctor and a patient safety expert and, of course, a quality expert. I think she's going to introduce herself better. So welcome so much, Dr. Farida. I'll just give you like 2 seconds to introduce yourself. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. Yes, I am Farida Kagure. I am a medical doctor. I've been one for the last 16 years. Worked in both outpatient, inpatient, within Nairobi, private, outside Nairobi. But I also do a lot of telehealth, telemedicine. That's something that is new in the last couple of years. I am a quality specialist, as well as a patient safety expert. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Farida. And from Dr. Farida, we have one that you know very much, is our dad, Bishop Simon Muhuko, who is also going to introduce himself to us. Karibu sana, Bishop.
Bwana asifiwe.
Amen.
It's very Thank you, Pastor Moses. My name is Pastor Simon Muhuko Maina, and I love Jesus. I am the pastor here together with my wife. I'm also a caregiver. Thank you. Amen.
Thank you.
And she's my daughter.
Bishop has already taken my responsibility of introducing. So we have Dr. Muhuko next to Bishop Muhuko. So Dr. Muhuko, just introduce yourself.
Praise God, church. Praise God. My name is Joy Muhuko, and I'm a medical doctor. Just graduated the other day, and I'm a mshirika. Yeah, and a caregiver. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joy. And next to Dr. Joy is Ms. Farida Kagure, I presume. Thank you so much. Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Njaa imeingia? Oh, lakini kidogo tu tutamaliza. So I'm Farida Kagure. I'm a pain and palliative nurse specialist and also a counseling psychologist. I consult with Equity Afya, but if you come to one of the biggest institutions in Kenya, you'll find me there wearing another hat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate her. And next to her is the one who's just spoken to us, is Dr. Mumbi, clinical psychologist. Karibu.
Afternoon, everybody. I believe I had introduced myself, but just for the sake of those who are coming in, I am Mumbi Njoroge. I'm a clinical psychologist, but also a specialist in integrated mental health promotion.
Thank you so much. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the discussion today. All is about mental health awareness. And probably I would want to start with you, Dr. Mumbi. You tell us something about mental illness. What really is mental illness or mental disorder, as people may call it?
Well, if you are here for the sermon, I believe I did give a definition of mental health. But then when we say that we avoid using the term illness. We nowadays prefer to call it a disorder. There's just order imeenda kidogo off. But when we talk about that, we are talking about a condition that has already been diagnosed. And usually it has moved from the mind, the thinking part, to the physical brain. The thing we say is between our 2 ears. Then we say at that point, you are having a disorder. Many people call it illness. It could be looked at as a disease. But there are so many. We have a big Bible for mental health. We call it the DSM. There are so many. Most of us know just the people we say pick papers here and that. There are very many disorders.
So when you talk about disorder and health, what is the big difference between illness and a disorder?
Illness and a disorder are the same thing, but illness is stigmatized. The whole idea is when you talk about illness, there's a lot of stigmatization. And therefore, that's why we talk about a disorder. It sounds a little bit milder.
Okay. Somebody actually talked to me about stress, anxiety, depression, panic attack, and so many things that are associated with a mental, you say that we call it a disorder. So I'm going to use the word disorder from now henceforth. Something associated with mental disorder. Tell us why do we associate anxiety, panic attack, and stress with a mental disorder?
Part of the reason is actually in that book that I'm calling the Bible for mental health. There is something we call a classification of anxiety disorders. Anxiety, for some people, it's fear. For some people, they get panic attacks. And like Gishuhi was saying, Paul, I don't know where he's sitting, was saying it can be a prolonged thing.
Sorry about that. Technical team.
It can be prolonged or it can be for a short time. And therefore, it's a disorder. It's really a problem. There are people who even struggle. They feel like they are going to have a heart attack, or you just panic and there is no reason to panic. So it's actually something that needs to be taken care of. And at some degrees, we actually do give medication, which we call anxiolytics, anti-anxiety drugs. Maybe one of the things I should say is that mental health disorders are classified. We have 7 floors. If you were to look at it in terms of magnitude, we range from, now the bottom one we call borderline. You're near the cliff, almost falling down into a major place. So that's, we have what we call borderline. We have a stage we call minimal. We have a stage we call mild. Then we have moderate. We have marked. We have severe, and we have extreme. So just because yours is borderline does not say you don't have a disorder. It's just very minimal. And so we need to differentiate that.
Dr. Farida, you are a psychologist. I want you to look at this issue of stigma because she mentioned something to do with stigmatization. When we talk about illness, it's stigmatized. How would you bring this issue out so that people may understand the issue of stigmatization as associated with a mental disorder? Yeah.
When we talk about, first let's look about, let's define what stigmatization is all about. The definition of stigmatization or stigma is looking at a person in a way that you're looking at the illness instead of seeing the person, you see? And when you talk about stigma in connection with mental illness, it's a real thing. It's something that we might not be, aware of, but like Dr. Mumbi said, when somebody walks in and they are smelling, they've not bathed because they have that disorder that is making them neglect their, activities of daily living. And the patient, I'm talking about the patient because I'm used to patients, sorry. And the person walks into church and they're smelling, and you go like, you don't want to sit next to them, you're showing like, huyu ananuka, unatoka hapa unaenda kule mwisho. That is stigmatization. So stigmatization is real, and it is with us. And why we get into stigmatizing others with mental illness, it's because first, we do not understand what mental disorders are all about. So bottom line is lack of understanding of what mental health is all about. And like she said, we are all potential, mental disorder holders. Let me put it that way. You can have a mental illness anytime. So the fact that you do not understand what mental disorders are and how they can present can make you stigmatize the other person. Call them, merogwa, they are sinners, they are all that, all those labels that we give them. It's out of lack of understanding of mental health.
Let me add something. Can I be heard? First of all, by the time we get to stigmatization, it is because we are looking at the person that has the disorder as if they are abnormal. So in our definition of what is abnormal is what you consider that has deviated from what as a society we consider normal. So if I seeing a patient coming in, and maybe the way they are dressed, the way they are talking, sometimes it's even the pressure of speech, sometimes it is even how they are, it's something small, like their eyes are shifting up and down, and you see like it does not look normal to you, then you first of all classify this person as abnormal. Now, having classified this person, the next step usually is, do I want to be associated with this person? Which is where now many of us, having looked at the abnormality of mental disorder, we find that it is too strong an issue to hang around with, then we shun the person. So now, having shunned the person now, of course, it brings in now the whole stigmatization discussion, yeah? Now, in the first place, we need to realize that just as Dr. Mumbi had said earlier on, how many of us have ever in their life had a headache? Anyone? Who has never had a headache? Maybe that's the question I should ask. Who has never ever had a headache? Yeah? You will come to me in the hospital, and when you come to me in the hospital and tell me I have a headache, one of the questions I'll ask is, where? Where? I know you're thinking it's in the head, but where in the head? Is it frontal? Is it side? Is it back? What's
So
the character?
Maybe, Dr. Paris, this matter of stigmatization seems to be so wide, and it's like people may not even understand when they are causing the stigma. Maybe if we could hear from a caregiver, like Bishop, have you ever suffered the stigmatization in your course of caregiving? Yeah.
Maybe to answer what Pastor Moses is asking, I have suffered stigmatization for quite a while, a long time. And there are people who normally think I could be the problem. There is something which is not right. And they will meet you and asking, what are you doing to your wife? So I think, to me, one of the challenges that people don't know about mental illness. Sometimes it does not have necessary to have a cause. Might be something genetic or more hormonal imbalances. So I think the greatest challenge is that people don't know what mental illness disorder means. So they are talking from the point of being ignorant. And I like what Jesus said, you will know the truth. Once you know the truth will set you free. So to me, basically, people are speaking from a point of what people think or some assumption they already have in their mind. They don't have the truth about the matter.
Thank you so much. I may want to know what are the causes, because we may speak about mental illness, disorder, and all that. Dr. Muhuko, would you enlighten us on what are the causes of mental illness?
So for mental illnesses, the causes, there are very many causes. Usually they are categorized. The psychological factors, like you could have gone through severe childhood trauma or a stressful life event, like you lose a loved one, that might predispose you to a mental illness. There are also biological causes. Biological causes meaning you could have a brain tumor, you could have an infection, you could have an hormonal imbalance, or you could have something we call imbalance of neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are those chemicals that your brain produces to ensure that your brain is functioning normally. So if your brain is not able to produce these chemicals in an appropriate manner, you might end up with a mental illness. There could be also genetic predisposition. Some inherit those genes and end up getting mental illness. There are also social factors like drug abuse, alcohol abuse, your current living situation. Maybe you're in a job that is stressing you. That might predispose you to a mental illness. So those are some of the causes of mental illness.
She mentioned something, Dr. Mumbi, about generic or something. Can it be genetic or is it genetic or something? Yeah, genetic. Thank you for the correction. Dr. Mumbi, is it genetic? Can it be, I guess that would mean inherited? Can it be inherited?
That's what genetic really means, that it runs in the family line. And therefore, sometimes when we are looking at people, then those are the people we are looking at and saying, enda uchimbe kwenyu. But really, iko kwa damu. Si walienda sijuu wakafanya kafara. It's actually in the blood, and there is some defect or in the genes. So yes, it does happen. But then also we do have other factors that we talk about, in as much as they are classified as psychosocial, we call them spiritual factors. Sin is a precursor. Some of us know what we should not do, then we do. Then guilt eats you. And it really eats you. Like some of the people I have met with coming from the church that are not willing to talk loudly about are people who are struggling with sexual addiction. Pornography is rife, especially in the advent of these things. And then atakuja hata hapa, atalead worship and stuff like that. So when you go back, you have so much guilt. And you develop something we call cognitive dissonance. You know what you should do, but you are not doing. You know the struggle of Paul. You are not doing it, and therefore inakukula. After that, you develop a disorder. It could be the sins of others. For example, and now not that generational. Think about a mother who is drinking kumi kumi, pombe, whatever you are taking, or even mira, alcohol, whatever. But let's talk about alcohol. Then they get pregnant. There is a child who perishes, and my fellow doctor here is going to deliver, and they will have something we call fetal alcohol syndrome. So the mother is okay, but the baby coming out is already doomed to develop a mental health disorder because of the development of the brain. Remember, as Joy? Dr. Joy is saying, neurotransmitters, they are there in the structure of the brain, then we have a problem. So sin, when you look at it now from a spiritual side, we'll call it sin because those are things you ought not to be doing. And so it is important to also add the spiritual element. I know people will talk about demonic possession, and it is true to some and not to everybody. The trick and the challenge of mental health as a mental health worker is to identify the root cause of the condition. Because you must separate. You diagnose, but what is the root cause? Then we have an appropriate intervention.
Thank you. I think that is worth clapping. Yeah, because the issue of knowing the root cause, I think, should be the key thing. Because for you to be able to solve something, you must know where it's coming from. And talking about still with the matter stigma and stigmatization, I don't know how you are managing the society. I don't know who is going to answer that people should know that this is an illness like any other illness, and therefore we should not put buffer zones and lines. Maybe to you, Dr. Farida.
Okay, we talked about, or rather I mentioned that stigma comes from not knowing what mental health is and what it entails. So the bottom line is to teach the community. For example, like we have this, it is not even a mental awareness week, it's a whole month of sensitization, talking about mental health, talking about the signs and symptoms, talking about the stressors that lead us to get mental health. Dr. Mumbi said we are all prospective, patients. Sometimes we look at others and think, inakuja kwa hao, sio kwetu. And we bring in the issue of nikurogwa, it's evil, it's nini, hii maneno yote. But mental health is a disease like any other. Just like we have patients who are diabetic, patients who are hypertensive, patients who have any other illness, mental health is a sickness like any other. And so we should not stigmatize our patients. We should not look at them differently. Sometimes we look at them and think, ni yao, wao ndio waliandikiwa, familia yao, they are prone to that, it's not us. And that brings stigma, because we do not look at the person, but we look at the disease, and we tunakaa hapo kwa ni ugonjwa. Like even when I'm actually, let's say for example, at hospital, I'm trying to talk about a patient who has depression. I'll talk about huyo mgonjwa yuko number 5 akona depression. That brings stigma. So we should not look at the disease, but the person. That is Farida Kagure. ako na depression.
Let me add, because part of the stigma doesn't come just from the community. The community leaders themselves have the ability to stigmatize. And I talk from the church context, because I come from the church, I've grown up in the church, and our ministers, unlike Bishop Mohuko here, who is a caregiver, so I believe him, he's different. But most of them are the same ones who stigmatize mental health and mental health disorders. So I tell people, the reason I actually deviated, and now the Lord has called me into what we call integrated mental health promotion, which is what I did my doctorate on, is to be able to marry scripture and to marry the science. And so now what I have figured and what the Lord has impressed on me is that we are having ministers that really wound the church. So as of this year, one of the things that now has happened is that I am going out training pastors, ministers, to help them understand mental health, so that when you come in, he receives you in a manner that is worthy receiving a child of God. And so that I also live with you as a prayer that itaendelea. The fire can spread.
Thank you. There's something that Dr. Mohuko said about what transmitters? Neurotransmitters. Can you explain this in Swahili? we try and understand it. Maybe you help us understand that one, Dr. Perez. Neurotransmitters. And as you answer that, tell us about issues of drugs, and how is it related? And can prolonged use of drug probably lead to issues of mental illness? And really can probably the mental illness itself lead people to drugs? How is it interconnected? Yes, and try to give us some Swahili words.
Okay. A very easy way of explaining neurotransmitters is like chemicals inside the brain that just fire. You know, like the way you can have an electrical impulse where you...
Like fireworks.
Like, yeah, like fire.
Like fireworks.
So, there are those chemicals that are inside our body which help us to either to function even on a normal day-to-day. That is what will, for example, when you have panicked, you will find your heart will beat faster. And the reason it's beating faster is because part of those chemicals have been activated to enable you to run or to fight. So some of those they actually circulate in the body, but you'll find them firing a lot inside the brain. And those ones will help even with our mood, yeah? So that's why sometimes you'll find you're excited. Okay. So that's why sometimes you'll find you're excited, maybe you're moody, you're down, all those sometimes are as a result of some of those chemicals, yeah? So the second question was on drugs. If we take drugs, do these drugs affect us? Can they lead us to mental illness and vice versa? Yes. They can lead us to mental illnesses, and the mental illness itself or disorder itself, the way we are feeling, can also lead us to go into drugs. So if we start with the first one, let's say I'm taking alcohol or bangi or whatever. What do? They will act centrally. Oh, okay. Back up a bit. Our bodies have what you call the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. So we have certain drugs, even alcohol, whether it's bang or it's these hard substances like heroin and cocaine, even codeine, they tend to work centrally in our bodies. And when they do that, you've heard people saying that it gives them a high. So that is what the person is going for when they're taking that drug. And so many times you'll find that if I'm not on the drug, I want to have that high, then I will keep going back to the drug. And in my normal state, maybe I am having some mental disorder, but then I am having escapism by going into the alcohol, or I'm going into those hard drugs, just as a way of escaping whatever is affecting me at that point.
Can it cause permanence?
Now, yes. In fact, studies that have been done have shown that alcohol use, bangi use, and all that actually lead to permanent medical disorders. I mean, not mental disorders. We have seen substance-induced schizophrenia, like Paul talked, well, Paul was not talking about substance-induced, but that condition, schizophrenia, he talked about, there is a part of it that is brought about by alcohol. And then even some of these other drugs, again, that are used socially tend to lead to that. The other thing we know with these drugs is they cause dependence. Dependence in that the body cannot function without them. So if it cannot function without them, then the person wants to keep going back over and over and over to it until the point where when they stop, they get withdrawal symptoms, which in some cases can even lead to suicide. Yeah? So the drugs themselves, yes, lead to mental illness, and mental illness will also lead to the drug dependence.
Thank you so much for that contribution. Pigia makofi. Thank you. And as Dr. Mumbi was talking, she said that she has done master's or something in integrated doctorate in stigma integrated mental health promotion. This is something of this mental health promotion. Thank you.
A doctorate in mental health promotion.
Okay, may I pick the word integration? So the integration, I believe, is bringing together something spiritual or scriptural into medical, something of this. And that's why I want to ask Bishop Muhuko, what's the role of the church? Because looking at these, we realize that the community and the society probably has a role to play in order for people to understand, like what we are doing here today. What's the role of the church in promoting mental health awareness?
I'm reminded about a scripture in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, where Jesus is saying, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest." So church should be a place of solace, a place of encouragement, a place where all people will feel accepted, and people that also be willing to walk with those people. So that when they come to church, if they need medical attention, if they need a psychiatrist, there will be a source of reference apart from praying for them and encouraging them and giving them hope. We also need to give a direction and encouragement for people to seek medical attention. And as we were saying, it's a disorder, something but gone out of order but can become back to order. And we believe that as a church, this should be a healing community, a place where people will encounter the presence of God, but also a place where people will be accepted and people will be adequately advised what they need to do. So I think the issue of integration comes in very handy to be able to integrate the scientific and the spiritual, because the Bible says God gave gifts. Some were given to be teachers, some were given to be pastors, some even administrators. That's a gift. So if all those gifts are able to work together in church, I think we can have a very dynamic community and can be a source of healing to our community.
I think when we are talking about integration, we need to look at it carefully, because some people might take it out of context, Dr. Mumbi, because we've seen people who bring herbs and whatever into the church and saying they're integrating it happens. Wengine wanakuja wanasema hii sasa ni ya kutoa pepo ama ni ya kufanya nini. I don't think that should be the role of the church. What do you say?
No, I don't think that's the role of the church. Remember when Jesus left Matthew 28, he said what? Go ye therefore and make disciples of all nations, teaching them, you baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and then teaching them what? To obey all that I've commanded you. So where do you get those commands? In his word. So what we are integrating as a people in the church, which I am, I don't know if I told you, but I do believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. I gave my life to Christ when I was 6 years old. To date, I have never seen a reason to leave him behind. So when I talk about integration, what we are talking about is integrating the teachings of the Bible with the mental health science. Purely, if it's not in the Bible, it is not part of the integration from where I come from.
Thank you.
It is the teaching of what we teach.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Mumbi. Thank you, Dr. Mumbi. And I'm turning this way because I want to pick questions from the audience. You are not now a congregation, you are audience, okay? I believe there is a microphone that is going round. So if you have a question, just don't worry, lift up your hand. And there is someone with a microphone. There is already, wow, so many hands. Oh my God, where do you want to begin? We will begin from the farthest end there. Who is that there? There is somebody? Okay, there's another one here. Thank you. Okay, let's pick that question. And panelists, we open our ears to try and pick the questions and pick them well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shavin Adhiambo, and my question goes to Dr. Mumbo.
We can't hear her. Please work on that microphone and expedite it kindly.
Pastor Wood. Oh. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
My name is Shavin Adhiambo. My question goes to Dr. Mumbo. My question is, how does stress lead to mental health, and how do we control it?
Okay, her question, I hope you've heard, how does stress lead to mental health issues, and how can we control it? Stress begins, well, stress is caused by many things. Like now, if you hear gunshots, we'll get stressed, unless you're a KDF soldier who can tell the difference about what's happening. We have things we call stressors. And therefore, we know we have all sorts of stresses.
Speak
but
closer
then,
to your mic, doctor. Thank you.
We are not preachers. So, but then what the stress does, not only does stress result in a psychological, meaning the mind, the thinking response, but it also results in what we call a physiological or the body response. So for example, as Dr. Peris there had said, you may have your heart beating fast. Why is it beating fast? The body has released, for example, one of the chemicals it will release is norepinephrine or cortisol. We have, or what we call adrenaline. You know, local man will talk about adrenaline and many others. So it is like your body is running a 42-kilometer marathon at the speed of a sprint. You know, even those long-distance runners, they don't run the marathon. If you watch them, ni kama anacheza tu kwa barabara. But he will run for 2 hours. But if he tries to exert himself like Omanyala running the sprint, he won't get very far. So even stress just affects us. So the body is just running, but running quickly. So what it does, it breaks the body. You get to a stage we call exhaustion.
Thank you.
Or general adaptation syndrome. Then you start to manifest. You start to manifest conditions, headache, constant. So you're going to Dr. Joy, I have headache. Unajua kuna hapa na hapa, oh my back, oh my knees. And when everyone tests, there is nothing wrong with the physical body. Then we say it is stress. But I won't go into the treatment, but let's talk about prevention very quickly, because I think it will be useless to tell you what it does and not help you figure out what to do. Number one, we have three things only. Number one, if you can predict your stress. For example, if you could have predicted it would rain, and you went to the hair salon yesterday, so ungebeba mavuli, ama ungesema ukae nyumbani. But if you didn't predict, my sisters will have a problem leaving church. The ability to predict your stressors is very important. Now Christians will say, we are calling those bad things and then they will become. No. Where there is no vision, people perish. Just predict it is okay. The things that will bring you down. But then thereafter, predicting is useless unless you can come up with a plan. Plan ahead. It wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. Once you plan ahead, the plan is useless if you don't put it into effect. And then get social support. That is why we have support groups. If it's widows, we put them together. If it's the teens, we put them together. You don't want to put teens and mothers. The issues of mothers and teens are like, I don't know, east and west. But we are saying your ability to predict, your ability to come up with a plan, your ability to implement it and get social support will actually help you overcome stress. It doesn't matter what it is, you will manage.
Plan ahead and act on it. I think we will be taking two questions. We combine them so that for the interest of time. I saw some hands over there. I see Pastor Kusolo's hand is up. So the mic person, please help us. Pastor Kusolo will pick your question. Let's pick like 3 questions. There's also another at the very back. We'll come to you. We've seen the hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll move away from the speaker, kindly. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. My question is, Bishop has helped us to know how the church should deal with mental health wellness, but also wanted to find out earlier, Dr. Mumbi, when she was speaking, she told us practical, simple things that help us know that this is a mental health issue. Like somebody can sweep and then refuse to sweep for the neighbor. Somebody can refuse to remove the neighbor's clothes and the rain hits them. How can also a community, how can a community also come up with measures of helping such people, because we live with them, and at times we may not know that this is a mental health issue. So we stigmatize and do some other sort of things. So I wanted to see to know how the community can also help to deal with that issues when they arise around our area of residence. God bless you.
Community participation, right? Let's pick another question so that there is one, just Pastor Grace. Thank you.
I'm just going direct to my question. The first question is how to know your child or adolescent may be struggling with mental illness. That is one. And then I have something from a friend. She's called Mwende and she's saying in Kiswahili, mamangu akona mental illness. Akiwa ametulia, kuna time anaweza anza kusema mambo alifanyiwa mabaya na ilipita, na kuna wakati akikasirika hutaki kuongea na mtu, anaendanga kulala. Naweza saidika aje niweze kumsaidia. My mother lived a very normal life until she was pregnant of me, and after she delivered me, she was diagnosed with a mental illness. I was taken from the hospital. She was hospitalized, help me understand how can I offer help to my ailing mother in a healthy way. I'm now a grown-up with a family, but can't cope well in fear of something may happen to my mom. Thank you.
Okay, I guess you asked like 3 questions. I'll pick them. Let's pick another question from there. I saw a hand over here. We first answer the 3 questions. Okay, let's go with that. The first question is about community participation. And then we have how to know your child. Maybe Dr. Joy, you'll help us with that. And then kuna yule mtoto anayekasirika sana. You've got that Swahili question. You'll help us with that one, Dr. Farida. And then there's a question about the ailing mother. That's about caregivers, so Bishop will help us. Let's go straight to the community participation. Probably you talk about that. Or, yeah. Okay, Dr. Farida. You're agreeing, okay.
You know, it's important to agree.
Okay.
Because it seems I'm talking too much, so I'm thinking, keep quiet. But how can the community support? Number one, we just say be there. Even when you don't understand, just be there. What we called the ministry of presence. Support. If the person has no knowledge about where to go. Like the last question, mama yangu anaweza saidika aje, or how can they access help? You point them in a direction where they can get help. The real thing is to meet the immediate need. Everyone will have a different need, but meet that immediate need.
Thank you. Dr. Joy, tutajuaje mtoto, how do you know that your child akona mental disorder? That question came from that corner.
So for children and adolescents, it is important to note that even children experience mental health issues, and there are a variety of mental health issues that affect children. Some of the ways you can be able to get an idea if your child may be struggling with a mental illness is maybe your child starts withdrawing, they have persistent sadness, they have trouble at school, they have trouble with concentration. Maybe your child has been performing well and all of a sudden they start performing poorly. Your child may also become very irritable. Children, for example, children who are depressed, they may not necessarily show a very sad mood. They may be very irritable, or they overreact to things. Maybe a minor thing and they overreact, they really overreact. You may ask yourself some questions. Also, if they are self-harming or talking about self-harming, if they're talking about committing suicide or talking about death. Also,
Thank you.
Yeah, I think those are the ones I can think of. Also, they can present with physical symptoms. Your child may be complaining of constant headaches or constant stomach aches with no organic cause. You know, that may help you to know if maybe they could be struggling with a mental health issue.
So there are those children perhaps who can also just pretend that they are ill and they're not ill, and that could be still a mental issue.
Yeah, or they faint at school or stuff like that.
Okay.
They are actually having some issues going on.
I think, let me just add.
Thank you.
I think it is not necessarily pretense. It is not necessarily pretend that they are feeling something. They actually present with physical manifestations. They will have, say it's a pain, abdominal pain that she has mentioned. They will actually keep having that pain. They will actually have the headache. It's there, they can feel it. But as much as we investigate and we do all sorts of tests, there is no physical, nothing physical being seen in any of the tests. So the other thing also is, if your child presents with any of these complaints, don't push them down. You know, don't behave as if they are pretending. Let's actually let them see that they are, whatever it is that they are complaining about, or whatever they're manifesting with, let them see that you're listening. Let them see you're hearing. Let them see you're in their court. Because if they feel like you're not understanding, many of these are the ones coming to us with either hysteria. There are very many we manage in the emergency room, with self-harm, what we call parasuicide, or suicide. Those are the ones who present to us, because that is a cry for help. You'll find someone has taken 100 paracetamols, because they can easily buy the Panadols. But what are they doing? They're trying to cry out. Why? Because when we said, I have this headache or I have this stomachache, they don't feel like any of us listen.
Okay. And I think it is a very important point to note as parents that we have to be keen on picking the signs. Thank you so much. Bishop Muhuko, there is a question that came of a lady whose mother is coming back home, and probably now she is going to start becoming a caregiver. Maybe what you do is share your experience when you first knew that you have a patient in the house who is actually coming home with these conditions.
Thank you. To me, it has been a long journey, because basically, even before you got married, she was hospitalized. So it's like you are in school, you are learning bit by bit. But the most important thing is to embrace them and to be there for them and to give them support. Because they will try to explain something, but unless you experience it, it's very hard for you to understand. Once you realize it's a condition and they need help and they need your support, without necessarily might not be able to understand all those, but you realize there are people that you need to empathize with, to work together with. And I like the way the word caregiver, you are there to take care and to know that you are just there for them. So it's a journey that I don't know how long it will take, but as you walk, you get to know much, started getting interested to know about depression, the causes. When she's going for a clinic, we are there together with my children. When she's taking medication, we are the one basically who are giving those medications to her. It's like you become a part of her life and you walk together with them. So it's not something that you just do and move away, but it's like you're working together.
Okay, Dr. Mumbi wants to
Just give me a minute. I'm one of those ones who likes practical solutions. I had a question about that lady having postpartum depression and the daughter wondering what I can do. What Bishop has said is very important. But really, as a daughter, sometimes it becomes very difficult to attend to your mother. Now, we thank God that healthcare in Kenya is not where it was when some of us started working. If you walk to any government institution, Mbagathi, Lucy Kibaki over here, go to Madari, go to Kenyatta, you can access help at an affordable price. And that help, you know, people used to say, you go to hospital, you get dawa. That's now not the protocol. Actually, now the current protocol, you actually are sent to either a counselor, a counseling psychologist, and the government has employed them. So do not shy away. Some of us look and think it's expensive. Do not shy away. If you have the ability to pay health insurance for your parent, I encourage you to pay the 500 NHIF. Hata kama atapata dawa madhari, they won't send her away without medication. There is intervention available. So do not stay with your problem at home. There is free help. There is help that is paid. You could go to Equity Afia, I see they're out there. If you find no one else, you'll find Farida. Because she's from there. And you will access help. So it's just important to know where to go.
Thank you, Dr. Mumbi. And,
I think I want to say to add something on that.
Okay.
And I will come at the front.
Yeah.
Because of the person who asked about, it's like the mother got depression after giving birth. That's what we call postpartum depression. And there is a possibility of that person also getting into depression because they are feeling like they caused their mother the problem. So even as they take care of the mother, they also need to be taken care of. They either go for counseling because they will start feeling guilty, they will start hating themselves, they will start feeling like mimi ndio nililetea mama yangu all these problems. So I would encourage Pastor Grace, whoever that is, encourage them also to seek help from a counselor so that they are able to separate themselves from what their mother is going through so that they are able to offer better help to the mother without now becoming a part of the problem. I think that is very key, isn't it? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give her a clap. And the question about ule mtoto anaye kasirika, I think we have already answered that. It is the physical expression of whatever is inside. Yeah, let's take another question. And this time I'll only take two, probably three, and then we finish because of the interest of time. Yeah, I saw there are some hands there that have not actually been attended to. There is one here, Musa. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got two questions. One.
Say your name.
Ambain. Someone with severe depression. That person is drug resistant. You recommend a procedure called ECT, electroconvulsive therapy. Other people call it electric treatment. I wanted to understand how effective it is, and number two, does it have a side effects? Number two question is, I'm thinking on the role of the caregivers. They are very important, and in the long run, other people don't know what to do. You know, in that situation, they listen up. Kijana yenu ni mwendo wazimu, you know, a lot of things. In the long run, they will also fall ill. Apart from the awareness, do you have the manual, or how prepared are we to cushion them so that in the long run, they will not fall ill? Thank you.
Did you quite get the second question about the caregiver? Okay, you got that? Yeah. Let me pick. There is a question at the end. There is another question here. So microphone, please. So there is that drug resistant. I hope you're taking note of that. And the issue of the side effects. Thank you, panelists. And, okay.
I have two questions. My name is Ruth Njuguna. A child diagnosed with ADHD, how long does the child take medication? And if the child stops medication, what are the consequences? I have another question. How do you deal with adolescent child with self-esteem?
That's self-esteem. We can pick another question. We are taking note of that. There's a question of self-esteem and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. we've picked that. How long should the medication take, and is there any side effects should the person stop?
My name is Lucy, and I have two questions. The first question is, how do you help a friend or a colleague or a family member who is in denial about their mental health? The second question is, how do you handle childhood trauma that happens to kids and may cause mental illness later in their life? This could include rape issues, family divorce that will affect this child at their early childhood, but is a major cause of later life mental health issues. Thank you.
Mrs. Muranja, there is a question from Mrs. Muranja here. That is about childhood trauma. We got that, and which can cause mental illness in the future.
Okay, my question has partly been asked by Lucy. I wanted to find out, how do you deal with someone who is showing the signs of mental disorder, but would not agree to counseling or even going to hospital, but is also exhibiting signs of aggressiveness? What advice would you give to a caretaker?
Thank you very much. I believe we don't have any other. Oh, there's one more there. That's Carol's hand. Okay.
Okay, I don't know whether I understand right that most suicide cases are as a result of a mental illness. Are there suicide cases that could come without a mental illness? And how come that, is it possible for a person to reach to suicide? How possible it is without anyone ever noticing or coming to their help? Then the next question is there something like personality disorder, and is it a mental illness or it's just a personality disorder?
Thank you so much. Wow, those are so many questions. I hope you will remember all of them. I've taken note of them in case we do not. I want to start with Dr. Muhuko, what you can answer from the many questions that have been asked. Any that you can answer from there. There's an issue of drug resistance, side effects. There's an issue of community participation. I think that one you already answered. And there's also an issue of ADHD. And there's an issue of self-esteem is coming up twice, actually. And childhood trauma. Let's just pick one from those and help us.
Let me answer her question about personality disorders. Personality disorders, yes, they are mental illnesses, and they are treatable, and they are, they are classified from the book that Dr. Mumbi has been telling us, the DSM-5. It can be able to classify those different types of personality disorders. An example is a person who is usually very paranoid, or a person who is usually likes to stay alone or has trouble relating with people. That is a disorder that they can be helped through, therapy, psychoeducation, and that they can be helped and they can be able to, be able to interact with people and, to live with people.
Thank you. Just pick another one.
Let me add. You know, exactly what she asked is what causes us to use the word disorder as opposed to illness. Because we are assuming the two are different. Because the person doesn't have a diagnosis, it doesn't say the person is okay. They are not diagnosed, so we cannot say they have an illness. Because we have to identify that illness, isn't it? But then, that person who is committing suicide, because she's asking, can the person commit suicide even if they don't have an illness? They already have a disorder in the mind. They are thinking contrary to the order of thoughts. So that's why we talk about disorders. So I say definitively that you cannot have a suicide without a disorder. There is already some disorder in the mind. There is already some disorder. I hope we understand that. And that's why then when we talk about personality disorders and all those things, they are really just disorders. So if you learn to replace illness with a disorder, you will go far. But so that I let the others answer, let me go to the person who was talking about drug resistant. We have some drug resistant conditions, and that's a reality. And psychiatrists and mental health workers know what to do. Indeed, there is that intervention, ECT, that is done, but just like any other medical intervention. Even when you are going for CS, ladies, see, we are told to sign a form. If you are not looking, your husband is the one who pens there. Because everything, even the Panadol you take, has a side effect. But the choice of intervention is based on the benefit vis-a-vis not doing it. So yes, there are some effects, but usually they are short-term effects. You might wake up with a headache. By the way, it's done when you are asleep. So you have no clue what's happening to you. Mama Pastor has been through it a couple of times. Does she look like she has had very many negative effects? You will have short-term effects, you may have others, but it is just like any other medical procedure. The fear also comes from just the lack of understanding and stigmatization.
Child trauma, Dr. Paris, can it cause mental illness, and how do you deal with that?
Yes, and not just child trauma. Any traumatic life event can actually lead to mental illness, if not handled well. So the main thing is these events will come. Divorce among parents, the children are caught in between, loss of a loved one. If this child or if this person is not handled well, supported well during that active period, there is a high chance that later on in life they will go through the same motions, and as they are going through them, if they are not able to handle them or if they overwhelm them, then yes, it leads to now these mental disorders. The other thing we need to realize is mental disorders span anywhere from mood disorders to the what we call madness. Even the personality disorders are part of them. So you might actually find these mood disorders being the predominant ones in these people who have gone through traumatic events. Like now, depression, they are overly depressed. Anxiety, you know, those are common conditions that occur. While we are at that, there is the question that was asked about ADHD. This is a condition that a child can actually be born with, and because of that hyperactivity and attention deficit, many people do not understand what ADHD itself is. But it is a whole spectrum from very mild to very severe. Now, for us to manage this ADHD, we first need to classify. First, we have to diagnose that it is the one, and then we have to classify. Is it mild? Is it moderate? Is it severe? How do we manage? It is individualized. How long shall we be on treatment? It is individualized. We can't blanket it. And that most of the time is long-term treatment, and we usually start from about 6 months on there. Many times by the time a child is 12, 13, many of them have gone off, but then there are those ones who now are on the severe one who might actually continue with treatment even into their adulthood. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr.
There is a question that has not been answered.
Yeah.
Someone who is sick and they have refused to take medication. And they have refused,
denial, yeah.
I don't know.
That's the issue of denial. So that's asking to you, Dr. Farida, this issue of denial, that you're sick, you don't want to take your medicine, you really feel like you are really denying. You got the question.
Yes, there's some patients who deny that they're mentally unwell, and they will refuse taking the drugs. So I will also bring the aspect of the mental illness being like any other illness. People deny even after they have been diagnosed with diabetes. They say, I can't be diabetic. I cannot be hypertensive. And they will stop and refuse. Actually, they will refuse to commence on drugs. They will refuse to adhere to the doctor's commands or orders. They will actually refuse that. They will say, this is not me. So it's also true with mental health or mental disorders. They will refuse. They will deny and say, this is not, I cannot be, actually, because of even the stigma that has been, placed on mental illness. Mimi ni mgonjwa, mwenda wazimu, that's how we call them, mwenda wazimu. So they will refuse to take drugs because of the stigma that we have placed on looking at the illness and not the person. So such a person needs to be taken through counseling so that they may be able to come out of the denial. Denial is part of us. It's part of the grief process where you start by denying first. It's a whole 5 level of emotions or feelings all the way to acceptance. First you'll deny, and then you'll get angry about it. You'll have God anger, you'll have self anger, you'll have, if, let's say for example, if somebody has been alcoholic, they will feel angry because they'll say, I have gotten into depression because I took alcohol or I indulged too much, you see? But we started by saying that it's a disease like any other. So they'll get into anger, they will get into depression before they come to acceptance. So we need to walk them through the grief process, the grief stages for them to accept. So such a person who is denying needs to be taken through supportive therapy.
Before you even interject, Dr. Farida, the issue of denial, there seems to be a thin line between denial and faith, because I know she's talking about integration. But sometimes if you go to church and you're prayed for, let me just put it blanket statement like that, you've been prayed for and you believe that you are healed. Would you call that denial? Or maybe Bishop, you answer that before she...
Exactly. I thought there are people who are well versed for that.
Bishop, like, I've been prayed for, I am well, why should I go back to my medicine?
I think if we go that direction, I think it's also good to, faith has a work. So if you are saying you are healed, it's like what Jesus was saying, after even healing the people who had leprosy, and then he was telling them, go show yourself to the priest for them to certify you're ready, and then give a sacrifice. So it's important we know that God heals, but it's also good for us to verify, so that if healing has not taken place, God can also use medication to bring healing. So we are not limiting ourselves to only faith. Faith works. If it does not work, God also used medication, because he's the one who has given that knowledge to be able to take care of. So basically, if you are saying you are healed, also we need also to verify that, even if the results, what are the results? Is it verifiable? Is it okay? Yeah, instead of refusing to take medication, because it's not a sign of faith, no. It's a faith even to go for testing to verify whether you are totally healed.
Okay.
Let me interject a bit before Dr. Mumbi comes in and share my personal experience about faith and about refusal to take medication. Being a pastor and a pastor's wife, after some time, I felt like I needed to practice faith. Just to be, I read the Bible, I could hear testimonies of people who are getting healed. So I would go like to mountains to pray. I would go to Catoloni and pray. And when I come back from Katoroni, I come and flash my medication. And I start confessing, sasa mimi nimepona. Natoa ushuhuda, nimefanya nini? Nimepona. But after 2 weeks, and I'm doing this even without my husband's knowledge. After 2 weeks, I go down. I'm taken back to the ward, and it becomes even worse. But the moment I got to a place where I accepted that this is a problem that I have to deal with, and I'm not like, because, and this was happening mostly because of what Dr. Mumbi was saying about the church. You know, like ukona demons, ama ukona mapepo, the stigma. That one would take me to pray and fast for so many days so that I am delivering myself from demons. Ninataka kujiodolea mapepo. So from there, I would come and then throw away my drugs. Najiambia mapepo imeisha. But after some time, I don't know what would happen to mapepo. Then they would come back. Then I'll be back to the hospital. So that is one way. It is very important. If you are working with someone, and it is true you are praying and you are doing everything and they are not getting any better, just encourage them to take drugs. One time I asked my doctor, for how long am I going to take this medication? And he answered me, as long as the Lord wants. Because he has the power to heal you instantly, and he has the power to heal you long term, and he also has the power to get you to a place where you get home, you are not healed, but you still go to heaven. The grace is sufficient. Now, coming back to the second, it was about what? About the person who is sick, and sometimes they don't know. Tuna watu wengi sana wagonjwa katika jamii zetu na hawajui, but we can tell ourselves, huyu mtu ako na shida. In that case, it becomes very, very hard. Kwa sababu, sasa hujui ufanye nini. But I believe with prayer, God can get us to that place. But if worst comes to the worst, and someone is becoming unmanageable, or you are suspecting they could be suicidal, you are suspecting that things are not going the right way, I would want to share my personal experience. Like last year but one, my sister came from the US, and she was very sick. As Dr. Mumbi was saying, depression runs in my family, like it's genetic. So when she came, we realized that she was very sick, but she was in denial. So everybody in the family kept calling me and telling me, our sister is sick, do something about it. But now when I talk to her, she tells me I'm not sick, I'm okay. So at some point, I realized we are going to lose her. So what I did, I organized with my doctor, and we tricked her. We took her to the hospital. That is what they do. And she was admitted. She was put on medication. And today she really thanks me. She tells me, if you didn't take that action then, I would not be alive. And I thank God kwa sababu ulinifanya nijue niko mgonjwa. Right now she's a happy woman, but if we never intervened, we would have lost her. So if that case comes to that level, ni vizuri sana kushikana kama jamii, you do something about it, musimuangalie akienda kwa shimo. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I was just adding actually to what Margaret has said, because I had that question of the aggressive person. Number one, if they are putting people's lives in danger, you know, they can kill, they can do funny things. We know what our patients are capable of doing. It is important to intervene. Now, how to intervene is the tricky bit. And so because every case is different, the number one thing we always say, those who see the problem. If you don't know how to intervene, come to us. One of our strengths is what we call psychosocial, we do psychosocial education. Come to us. Share with us. Come now. You are not the patient, but come on behalf of who? Of the patient. Sit down and say, and have many who come. Mumbi mimi sio mgonjwa, lakini. And then describe that situation. Then we will be able to give you guidance on, number one, the appropriate way to intervene. Hata kama mtamtoa nyumbani, unajua mkimfunga na kamba, mumuweke kwa pickup, unajua atakumbuka. Maisha yake, si you have broken relationships. Come and ask Mumbi, how can we ethically and in a godly way intervene and do what now Pastor Margaret is saying? How can we do that? Then we look at your situation and we guide you. Sometimes we have what we call domiciliary services in the hospital, like at Chiromole, and I know they do have. They will even send nurses who you will be surprised. They sit there, they talk to the patient. Unaona patient ametoka ameenda hospitali. Because they are trained. So don't sit with your problem. You might go and decide to do something and it turns on you like the sons of Sceva. Na utoke bila nguo. So be very careful, come for help.
Okay. Thank you very much. And because of time, you know we cannot exhaust everything. But there was a case study. I don't know if Emma is still around, if she still wants to share that, about something probably she did concerning the role, the issues to do with the treatment protocols of mental disorder. Emma, do you still want to share it? She wants to, so can somebody pass the mic kindly to Sister Emma?
Praise God.
Maybe you come in front for the sake of those who are watching from home. Thank you.
My name is Emma Wairimo. I'm born again, and I want to thank God for this wonderful session. On Monday, one of my friends had his niece attempt to commit suicide. Right now, as we are speaking, the boy is still in hospital, and let me say it's by God's grace that as the boy attempted suicide, he did a video note and sent it to the best friend. So it is that best friend who called this person that they are living with and told her, Alex is committing suicide, he's in the room. So when my friend walked to the room, he found the boy unconscious. He had already intoxicated himself and taken alcohol. So the boy was rushed to hospital unconscious, and the doctors have tried to flush out the toxic. Now the problem is the boy is still in hospital, because when the grandmother was called, the grandmother is a pastor. So when she came, she started telling the boy, you are demon possessed. So the boy is still in hospital because the auntie cannot take her home where the grandmother is, and they do not know whether to talk to the boy because the husband of this lady is telling the lady, don't talk, let's be silent. And the woman is like, Emma, do we talk? And the grandmother is home, so there is no good environment for this boy who attempted suicide. So he's still in hospital as we are speaking.
What do you do in such a case? Maybe we begin from, in such a case, what do you do?
That's quite a tricky one. Maybe I'd ask Dr. Mumbi to respond to that.
Okay. First of all, the boy is in hospital. They are trying to detox and flush out all the toxins, and it's a critical thing that needs to happen. And so I like that that is happening. Now, there are two sets of people that need help here. Number one, we have Shosho, the grandmother, who is a pastor. Did I tell you the first problem, the people we need to help? She's one of those ones we need to help. But I want to point out that that's someone who needs some intervention. And because she's a minister, it helps to speak to your own kind. So if I was you, I'd send her to Mama Church, Mama Kanisa Hapa, because she needs help. She's not saying that, and I don't want us to misunderstand stigma. She's not telling that boy that way because she hates the boy. She's frustrated, she doesn't know what to do, and she's giving that which she has. So we will not blame her. So what we'll do is empty that cup and add something else so that when she's giving the most appropriate thing. So she does need help. But then there is someone else who needs help here. The parents. The parents or the family. Let me talk about the family. Because if there are other children in that family, don't they also need help? You know, we go and see adults even when people die and we forget the children. They are also human beings. Let the children come to me. And I also say in mental health, let them come to Christ. He will sort them out too. There is that family. I put it to you especially now that the father and mother are confused as to what to do and approach the situation. It is a high time that they themselves get help from a counseling psychologist, a psychologist, someone who can walk with them the journey to know what to do or what not to do. Because they are afraid to intervene. They don't know if they say something, it is going to cause the boy to go, Alex, to go off the cliff. And so they need help. But then not just them. If they are siblings and they are aware of what has happened, even that friend must be very shocked. They need what? Help. They all do need help. And I don't want us to ignore that. And all of them, no matter what they are doing, the number one thing I have learned in mental health, people react out of love. But ile akonayo ndio anakupa. Na kama hajui, hajui. And therefore, for you as a friend who knows now what has happened, it is now upon you, because we have educated you a little bit, I am hoping, that to go and tell them, go and see help. And whatever hospital they are in, you'll be surprised. There are medical counselors there. You will find counseling psychologists there. They can intervene. If you don't find anyone, ask Pastor Margaret where to find me. We need to help them. Because then if that environment doesn't change and you take the boy there, then there might be a complication. But let's assume Kina Paris, these medical doctors here, decide to discharge him. So do you keep him in hospital? No. Sometimes we have places you can take them for care, or to a relative, an auntie, someone they really are close to, for a while as the family system is being supported. There are so many ways to skin a cow. It just depends on the size of the cow and how you look at it.
Thank
you so
Get
much.
help.
Thank you.
Dr. Mumbi.
Let me share an experience so that Emma may be able to help their friends. There was a time I was in such a certain situation. I had been discharged from hospital, but pastors came to see me, and they prayed prayers that they made me more depressed, because walianza kunitoa mapepo. So when my doctor came and realized what was happening, I was still discharged, but taken to a different place. So my husband was asked, we are still going to discharge Margaret, but take her to a place where no church member will visit, no pastor or any clergy will visit, or anyone doing any kind of prayer will visit. And let her stay there for 3 weeks. It's only you and your children who are going to see her. And that is what they did. And for those 3 weeks, I stayed somewhere where no one knew where I was. It's only them. They would come to see me. And after those 3 weeks, I was well. And by then, the environment of the church na mambo ya kukua mwenda wazimu ilikuwa tayari tulia. So as Dr. Mumbi is saying, you can advise them to look for a place, even a friend's house, where this boy can get time to heal as they sort out their family issues. And then I think that it can really do help. Now I'm telling you something practical that happened to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Reverend, and thank you for that experience. For the interest of time, I just give you 2 seconds. You give us your closing remarks, and then we call it a day. Thank you. We begin with Dr. Paris. 2 seconds, closing remark.
What I want to say is mental health is a branch of medicine that many people have not really understood. And because of that, we are having a lot of misconception. Any disorder, whether it is in the body or in the brain, in the mind, will require medication or will require management by a healthcare professional. The Lord has put us there as his hands and his feet that we might actually be able to manage these conditions as they come up.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bishop Muhuko, closing
Mine
remark.
is get information. And I think that will be very helpful about mental awareness.
Thank you so much. Dr. Muhuko.
Mine is to say that don't be that person who is going to kill their hope. These people need love. And if you don't know any way to help them, you must hear from the doctors and the panelists. Just take them to hospital and let's stop the stigma.
Thank you, Dr. Farida.
Mine is mental health ranges from stress all the way to very complicated mental health disorders, and they all have solutions. So don't die silently. If there's something that is not okay, if you feel you need help, please don't feel shy to reach out for somebody. Reach out for a friend, reach out for family, reach out to your pastor, reach out to professionals who are able to help you. God bless you.
Thank you. And Dr. Mumbi?
Mine is to tell you, it is okay not to be okay. You need not feel embarrassed. It is okay not to be okay. And there is help available. God bless you.
Thank you. And we, from the panelists, we really appreciate. We have Reverend Margaret also, who has formed part of an on and off panelist. Just come and wind it out. I want to give you a minute. A minute. Those are 60 seconds. A minute from now.
I want to say that there's nothing so painful or killing us than an untold story. That thing that you hide and you don't talk about it can kill you. So please talk to someone. If you are mourning, talk to someone. You know, losses are in many forms. Losses in health, losses in our family members, losses in businesses. Please don't, usikufe kwa kimwanaume, sema I'm a man. No, talk to someone. The last one is, let us love people just the way they are, without judging them and without calling them names, because stigma is real and it is very, very painful. And stigma is worse than an illness. I can tell you the stigma I've gone through as a pastor and a pastor's wife is worse than depression, because it has put me sometimes in a very bad situation. So please let us stop the stigma, as we had said, and let us support people as much as we can. And God bless you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And in closure, I want to appreciate my husband and my children a lot because it's been a journey of over. It's been a journey of close to 30 years because when we got married, I was still sick. And now we've been married for 28 years. But he's still there even now. Even now, he's still there. The day before yesterday, I went to see a doctor. And he wanted to change my medication. And the prescription I was given was 50,000. 50,000 shillings. And I was amazed. I called him, I told him, the prescription I'm given here is 50,000. Do you know what he told me? Don't worry, we shall buy those drugs. So we really I appreciate my daughters, I appreciate Dr. Mumbi for working with me, and the church members. God bless you, God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And from me and my panelists here, it's bye-bye for now. God bless you. Amen. Amen.